At the very beginning, there was a garden. A beautiful garden filled with many different kinds of plants. They were painted with vibrant colors such as reds, yellows, blues, and purples of all kinds. The flowers in the garden were the most peculiar, completely untouched by the negative impact of greed, hatred, and envy, and because of this, they responded to the touch of other living creatures, almost like they could communicate. You could hold some up to the sky to catch a breeze, and they would magically sprout long petals to carry them away in the wind. Others would light up if they heard a pleasant sound. The other plants were bushes and long, thick vines that bore large fruits and tasty seeds that could leave you in a terrible state of confusion and dullness if you ate too much. The trees could gently wrap their soft branches together to create a little nest or sleeping place for whoever needed one. Each living creature was intertwined in some way, and the garden is in perfect harmony. After many, many years, the inhabitants of the garden began to work on something new. Without realizing it, the birds, the squirrels, and even the flowers were contributing to the most amazing creation ever known. There was a tree that stood at the very center of the huge garden. The tree's trunk was as thick as an elephant and as tall as a building, and its branches extended for years. This tree was called Mezzo. It was the place where all life began. The roots of Mezzo were thousands of feet below the ground, growing, twisting, and spinning, creating a new energy. This energy began to materialize, and the ground became soft as the energy rose up through the dirt and above the ground. Droplet bugs rushed by, huge creatures with pouches filled with water, and carelessly spilled all over Mezzo and the ball of energy that was sprouting from the ground beside it. Slowly, the energy began to harden and grow. It evolved and became a new creature. The singing flowers mimicked the sound that came from it. The creature liked the sound and tried to copy it, and the white flowers glowed. He had a certain vibration to his voice and that every living thing enjoyed. However, as the days passed, the creature began to get frustrated. He had a very hard time communicating with the other living things in the garden because he was different. He couldn't understand the birds and the trees, nor could they understand him. And he started to become very lonely. This sad energy created an imbalance in the garden. The flowers sang sad songs, and the fruit became smaller, and the seeds tasted dry. Eventually, Mezzo began to feel it. And once again, the roots, thousands of feet below the ground, began growing and twisting and spinning, creating another energy. This one evolved in the same way the first did. When it was finished, it was different. This creature was slightly smaller and lighter. When she saw the beautiful garden, she released a soft, sweet sound, and the flowers around her began to glow more brightly than ever before. She danced around the tree happily, and the vines twisted and danced with her. The garden was balanced again. However, the first creature had no idea that there was another like him, for the garden was very large. Many weeks had gone by before he heard a soft sound nearby. Curious to see what flower that it came from, he listened and followed it. And then he saw her, dancing and singing with the vines and the birds. He tried to hide, but the sound of her voice drew him out. When she saw him, she stopped singing. And then she smiled, and he smiled back. She released a sigh. "Hi." The word threw him into shock. He could understand her. "Hi," he replied. She seemed surprised, too. She reached out her hand in front of her, and he took it. "What do I call you?" she said. He thought for a moment and remembered the moment that he came to be. He remembered the sound of the flowers made and tried to copy them. "Ah," he said. She laughed. "That's not a name, that's just a sound." He shrugged. "May I call you Adam?" He liked the way it sounded when she said it. "Adam," he repeated. "Call me Adam." She smiled. She enjoyed the sound of his voice. "What do I call you?" said Adam, still holding her hand. She thought for a moment and released a sound. "Eve?" he said. "Yes." He let go of her hand and followed her as she walked. They were excited to talk to each other. They conversed about many things: the moment of their creation, the songs they knew, the different flowers and fruits they had discovered. They enjoyed each other's company very much. One of their favorite things to do was flower hunt. They would go off in separate ways and try to find flowers that did different things. person who came back with the most won. Adam's favorite flower was a large orange flower made up of many small petals. If you rubbed it with your hands to make it hot, it would squirt a sweet-tasting juice that turned you invisible. Eve's favorite flower was a very rare, delicate, light purple flower. It was usually found closed up in a bud, and if you touched the top lightly, it would bloom and release a sweet-smelling perfume, and the petals would stain your lips different colors. Adam and Eve had great fun teasing each other with the new flowers they would find. One evening, after a particularly unsuccessful flower hunt, they decided to go to the stream to cool down. Afterwards, they walked around and sang, making the little white flowers glow. Suddenly, Eve stopped short and ran to the bank of the stream. There she found a very large bud and thought it was her favorite flower. She plucked it and ran back over to Adam. "Watch," she said excitedly. She touched the top, but nothing happened. "I'm waiting," said Adam playfully. "Shh!" She touched the top again, and nothing happened. She frowned. "Why isn't it working? Let me try." Adam took the bud and tried many things, but it still wouldn't open. Eve slumped down on the side of the river, and Adam joined her. "Maybe it's a different type of flower." "Maybe," she said, and took the bud. Adam looked at her. He suddenly felt very strange. He quickly grabbed the bud out of Eve's hands and fooled around with it to distract himself. Then suddenly he stopped. He looked at the bud and looked at Eve, who was staring into the river, and then looked back at the bud. "Eve," he said. She looked up and saw him slowly close his eyes and draw the bud up to his lips. It blossomed into a giant, gorgeous flower before them. The pink was vibrant and beautiful in every way. Eve gasped and hugged Adam. "It looks like you," he said. She smiled a smile that was almost as big and beautiful as the flower. Then they laid down to look at the stars. After talking a while, Eve yawned and turned her aside to face Adam. He looked at her and smiled. Then he thought of the flower. He took Eve's gentle cheek in his hand and slowly leaned towards it until they were just nose to nose. Suddenly, an impulse came over him. He closed his eyes and pressed his lips against hers. This was an entirely new touch to both of them, an entirely new feeling that was pure, innocent, and ran deep into their veins. Adam had started to pull away when Eve held onto his hand, and then took his cheek in her hand and returned the kiss. They both smiled at each other and laid there, neither one wanting to get up. Eve stretched out and lay closely to Adam, feeling the warmth of his skin against hers. Adam wrapped his arms around her and pulled her closer. They kissed again. Suddenly, the impulse grew to an energy that crept out from inside them, an energy that bonded them together as one. They began to start the same dance as Mezzo's roots, twisting, bending, and growing, unknowingly creating a new energy that would materialize into a new creature as the flowers around them glowed. The end.
Aww.
It's long.
That's pretty.
I like my stories.
You made that one up?
Uh-huh.
From scratch?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm impressed.
Thanks.
How long did it take?
I don't know. Probably at least an hour, because this one, I remember I had like an idea, and then I just went to the computer and sat there and wrote for 4 pages. And ta-da! Yep.
You could be a screenwriter.
Yeah.
That'd be neat.
That'd be cool.
You thought about that?
No.
Maybe it's something to look into.
Maybe. Are you still recording me?
Yeah. Okay, bye.